Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2023 Alfa Romeo Giulia Veloce all-wheel drive. This is one of 3 vehicles that Alfa Romeo currently produces. For those of you who aren't familiar with the brand, they are a luxury Italian automaker under Stellantis, and they have a very strong auto racing heritage, so you can definitely expect their vehicles to be performance-oriented and driver-centric, and this Giulia is no exception. So the Giulia is Alfa Romeo's compact sports sedan, which there really aren't too many true sports sedans out there anymore. This competes with the likes of the Genesis G70 and the BMW 3 Series, long the reigning king of that segment. But honestly, this Giulia is a whole different beast. So you can imagine, since Alfa Romeo only makes 3 vehicles, they really put a lot of research and development time into their vehicles. And I mean, they have such a cool auto racing heritage. The 4C is one of my favorite vehicles of all time, and I mean, the Giulia just continues that heritage. As you can imagine, hailing from the same group as Ferrari, you can expect some pretty impressive things from Alfa Romeo, especially their engine, which looks already the part of a true sports sedan. I think a lot of vehicles out there, like, even like the Lexus IS and the Mercedes C-Class, they claim to be sports sedans just because that's honestly the buzzword you need to sell now, but there aren't too many that actually deliver the performance and handling that a true sports sedan should, and this one looks the part and feels the part. So the 2023 Giulia didn't really get any big changes. There were 2 limited edition trims for this model year. You've got the Lusso and the Estrema, and you've got the Veloce right in between those. Veloce is actually the 2nd highest trim that you can get on the non-quadrifoglio version of this. The quadrifoglio is basically their high performance variant with a very powerful V6 that is Ferrari derived. They love saying that. But yeah, so this one here is the 2023 model year Veloce. So the Veloce gives you some nice goodies. It does make it a bit sportier. You get those beautiful wheels, honestly one of the coolest wheel designs out there. You get like the rear diffuser, things like that, and of course those gorgeous brake calipers as well. So the Veloce is kind of like a luxury plus a bit more sporty trim, but sporty in just appearance only. There's no actual difference in the actual engine. You do get a limited slip differential though, which is pretty cool and does definitely increase the sportiness of the vehicle. I do want to note that in 2024, this does get a facelift. So you get the new 3 headlight design, which I do think looks a lot better than the current design. Looks a little stale, but honestly, I still think this front fascia, introduced back in like, what, 2016 or 2017, still looks so attractive. And I mean, like, they've made small, subtle adjustments to it, but it still looks very, very good and sharp. The rear taillights also get a bit of an adjustment to kind of just align with the current Alfa Romeo design language. But a big thing on the interior is that you get a new fully digital 12.3-inch gauge cluster. That is a huge improvement over the one that is currently in the system. It looks very dated, but some people, the true traditionalists really love those analog gauges. So depending on what you want, maybe you can save some money on a 2023, but the 2024 one does feel a lot more modern. So if you're thinking that you want this sharp Italian luxury brand in your garage, the base MSRP for the base trim, which is called the Sprint, that one is just about $44,000. As tested, the Veloce trim I have here comes to about $58,000. But again, it's one of the higher trims, and I do have this one with the $660 Vesuvio gray color, as well as the $2,200 premium interior and sound. So a few small packages there, but the Veloce trim does start above $50,000. So pretty pricey, especially compared to some of its rivals out there, but you do get a lot of value and truly the best driving experience I've ever experienced in a compact sedan. So one thing I find kind of amusing about the Veloce name is that Veloce means fast in Italian, and this vehicle has actually the exact same engine that the base trim has. So powering this is a turbocharged 2-liter inline 4-cylinder, makes 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque. That's definitely not bad. It gives you 0 to 60 times of 5.5 seconds, which is actually about average in its class. The Audi A4 is actually a little faster than it, but it feels fast because you have such great shift mapping. Additionally, this vehicle comes standard with rear-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic transmission, but you can get the optional Q4 all-wheel drive for an additional $2,000. This tester I have here does have the Q4 all-wheel drive. That gives this vehicle right here fuel economy estimates of 23 city, 31 highway, for a combined 26 miles per gallon. Not bad in its class, pretty standard, I would say, for a compact sedan. All right, let's dive into the exterior of this gorgeous vehicle. I mean, look at this stunning design. it's so different from anything else out there on the road, and it's very like traditionally Italian. I love that. I love the colors of the Alfa Romeo badge. It's a really gorgeous badge, probably one of the best looking ones out there. I love that the front fascia has all radial vents. I think any enthusiast is going to appreciate that. You do have some black trim on the Veloce trim, which makes it look a bit more sporty. And I mean, just, it's such a cool design, all those sharp edges and angles. I mean, it's been around for so many years now, and it very much shows how nice this design is, the fact that they barely even gave it a facelift for 2024 after 8 years on the market. So it looks incredible. I love the front. It looks very, very good. The engine itself also looks incredible. Again, I just can't get over how good it looks with those red letters on it. You'll also see Alfa Romeo in a few different places. You got Alfa Romeo in the LED headlights. You've got Alfa Romeo on the interior. The badge is in a few different places. It's very subtle. Of course, you've got daytime running lights. All of it is LED. You do actually have adaptive headlights as well. So when you turn the wheel, you actually get a little bit of light in that direction. And going into the side profile, you can see the Veloce trim. I do like that they put it on the side. It makes it feel a bit more special. They actually do that with every trim though, so you'll always know the trim based on looking at the side profile. And kind of backing up a little bit here, you can see that it's not a very large car. I would say that it's one of the smaller compact sedans in the market, but it's still practical. So I mean, it's fun and it's practical. That's really all you can ask for sometimes with sedans, right? The wheel design, again, is such a standout. I love the Alfa Romeo lettering. It looks so luxurious. This vehicle really looks much more expensive than it is, right? Like, I feel like people would think it's the same as like a Maserati or a Ferrari, right? But it is significantly cheaper than those brands. But this 5-clove design looks so cool. So these are 19-inch sports aluminum wheels. They look incredible. You've got those red brake calipers as well. And the Veloce trim, again, does have a limited slip rear differential, which is pretty nice. And again, this color here is called Vesuvius Gray. It is a $660 option. I think it looks pretty good. I do think the other Alfa Romeo colors look a little bit better, but this gray really does sparkle. This metallic gray sparkles very well in the direct sunlight that we're having here in San Jose right now. Going into the rear profile, the taillights I don't think are too interesting. Honestly, they kind of look like a Honda Accord from certain angles. But I do like the badging, of course, the Giulia badge, and then you've also got that Q4 all-wheel drive badge. The trunk has a decent amount of cargo space, about 13 cubic feet of cargo space. It is not a power-operated trunk, unfortunately, so you do have to open it manually and close it manually. So a little bit less luxurious than some of the competitors, but not too uncommon in a sedan. Otherwise, the other interesting part of this rear is going to be that nice rear diffuser. It looks very good. Additionally, you've got these really sporty looking huge fat tailpipes. Unfortunately, those are just a cover, so you can see the actual tailpipe inside, but they sound very good. Let's take a listen right here. Truly one of the best sounding, if not the best sounding, sports sedan out there right now. Sounds better than the 3 Series in my opinion. Another cool thing to note is that the exhaust tips are blacked out. That adds to that sportiness factor, and kind of, I mean, this vehicle overall is just very sporty looking, right? Like those wheels, all of it looks quite sporty, and I think that is going to please a lot of people who are looking for a true sports car because it looks sporty, it actually drives sporty. But the inside, as you guys will see soon, is not really up to snuff in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at the interior of the 2023 Alfa Romeo Giulia Veloce. So you do have keyless entry, definitely expected at this price point. Oh, I did also want to call out that these mirror caps are blacked out, which is pretty cool. I will say the one thing I don't like about the door handles here is that it has the button. That just looks and really feels not luxurious. It feels like something you would get on Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, or something like that. You know, most other luxury manufacturers just have an indent, which feels a lot better. But the keyless entry has worked very seamlessly. And before we dive in, I did want to show you guys what the key fob looks like. All right, so here's the key fob. You've got that nice fancy Alfa Romeo lettering right there. Looks very, very nice. You've got the badge on the back. I will say I don't like that the badge sometimes is not colored in. Feels like skimping out, and I just don't know if it makes sense for a vehicle of this prestige. You see those Alfa Romeo badges right there on the headrest. That is super cool. It just comes with the car, which is kind of mind-blowing as someone who bought a Porsche and had to pay for the crest on my front seats. Much more expensive vehicle, but you get the crest for like $600 or something like that. This steering wheel looks incredible. The start-stop button is on the steering wheel. Super, super cool. Look at those magnificent, huge paddle shifters. And you've got the Alfa Romeo badge on the steering wheel as well. So, I mean, taking a look at this, already quite impressed. The door panels also look nice. Again, this is probably because I have that premium interior package, but you do get nice leather stitching on the dash, all across the dash. And you also get on the door panels, upper door panels, and like all of this stuff is soft touch material. It feels very good. This aluminum trim right here looks and feels really nice. You can get that like carbon fiberized on the quadrifolios. You do have the nice upgraded 14 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. That is also part of that premium interior and sound package. Well worth it in my opinion if you want the car to feel much more luxurious. All of these switch gears feel very good. Nothing feels bad. I think that's one thing that really impresses me, is that this does feel like a luxury vehicle. You've got that beautiful Alfa Romeo script on the door sill right here. You've got that Alfa Romeo badge appearing on that center 8.8-inch infotainment screen, and it also does appear on that small digital screen there as well. The steering wheel feels great. It looks great too. The actual tech in the car could use some improvements for sure, but that's really not what this car is about, I would say. So, you know, looking at this center dash here, Alfa Romeo isn't trying to do what all of the other luxury manufacturers are doing, right? They're not trying to replace all their buttons with screens. And I think a lot of people who like the traditional button layout will love this. It's very easy to use, very practical. And I think, you know, without having to get too much into screens there, saves you a lot of time and the convenience. But it doesn't look as fancy. So a bit of a trade-off there. Like I said, again, the door panels look incredible. The passenger has basically the exact same stuff on their side. You do have some interesting three-way memory seats for the driver. They were very difficult to find. They are on the underside of the seat. So basically when you go down here, you've got some buttons here, and it's very strange. I don't really understand why they would do that, because you cannot see it when you're up here. No matter how much I look, you can't really see it, so you have to get out of the car and like figure out which button. It is straightforward, they're like 1, 2, 3, but I mean, weird system. There's also more buttons here, which I discovered are for the bolsters. You can adjust the bolsters in this seat. But I mean, just like, how are you supposed to know based on just like it doesn't have the normal feel. They're literally just buttons. They feel the exact same as the seat memory. Strange design. So again, this does feel luxurious and looks luxurious, but I do think there are some strange design choices. I don't know if they did it on purpose to stand out, but overall the cabin quality does feel quite premium and well deserving of that $55,000 price tag. All right, let's dive into the steering wheel right here. So the steering wheel, like I said before, looks good. You've got this nice aluminum paddle shifters on the back of it, and notice they don't move with the steering wheel. How weird is that? That's like it's the only car I've ever driven that it doesn't move with the steering wheels. They're also never this massive. They do get in the way when you're trying to, like, you know, adjust lanes or anything like that. You kind of end up hitting this sometimes. I will also note, when I signal to the left, it goes back to the neutral position. It's one of those cars, so if I want to cancel it, just tap it back. You get used to it, honestly, but I can definitely see how some people would be very annoyed about that. You've got adaptive cruise control standard across all of the trims on the Alfa Romeo, the 2023 Giulia at least. Notice there's no button here, and that's because we don't have the semi-autonomous driving package. So that one is a $700 driver assistance package, which I wish I could have used here, but yeah, we don't have that package, so we don't basically get that freeway driving. It's like a steering wheel right here. So I've heard it works very well, so I really wish we had that, but not too big of a loss. You still do have adaptive cruise control, and it works well from my experience. On the right-hand side, you've got your media controls. Very, very self-explanatory. All of these buttons feel good. They feel clicky. They don't feel worn out, even though this rental car here has 30,000 miles on it. But yeah, it's all pretty intuitive. I will say the weird thing is they put buttons. The lane keep assist is a button on the left-hand side, which I guess I have seen before. And then on the right-hand side, you have a button to scroll through your menus in this little digital screen here. It took a while to find that. So it's one of those things where I mean, I think this looks good. I like the design of it. I like the little, like, you know, things that kind of look like cup holders in a way, or sunglasses or something like that. It looks good. It shows everything you need to know. Oh, 100 degrees, geez. You can tell that all of the things here are very Stellantis-like though, right? So they definitely use some of the same software, I would say. The top the little things in the corners are all adjustable. You can change those to be whatever you want. Some of the cool small little gimmicks in here, you've got Alfa Romeo right there, which looks very cool, and you've got Guilia, which I looked up, stands for like revolutions. So basically, that is your tachometer on the left-hand side, and you've got your speedometer on the right-hand side. So it's pretty cool. I like that they throw in a little Italian heritage right there. You'll see that blue N in the middle right there is your DNA drive mode. So I can switch it to D. You've got a little nice graphic in the middle screen as well. It's hard to know what they stand for without looking it up. Dynamic, straightforward, right? N, you're like neutral, natural? It's natural. I guess a neutral form of driving. And then you've got A, which is advanced efficiency, which is strange because it is supposed to be both their fuel efficient drive mode, which a lot of vehicles have, but it's also their like off-roading one. So they say to use that in bad road conditions. So kind of an interesting blend right there. I will say for this vehicle, I keep it in D almost all the time. It really tightens up the steering. I do think the steering is a little light without the D driving mode, but it feels great. Honestly, the shifts, the transmission is mapped interestingly in this vehicle because the shifts are a little abrupt no matter what drive mode you're in. So I think for that reason, I just put it in dynamic and it feels good and it feels fun, and I just keep it there. It doesn't feel too different from natural, whereas some vehicles, it is very different and can be a little too abrupt, I would say. All right, this is an 8.8-inch touchscreen, which they finally made a touchscreen after a long time. Their old one was like, what, 7 inches and just very small. Unfortunately, I think it's running the same software that it was running back in like 2016. It is not fast. Yeah, you can see, it is laggy. It's a touchscreen. It's okay, maybe from like back in 2016, I would say. But it's just really not up to par with the things that like BMW and the Germans produce these days. I will say what is a little odd to me is that you can use this little scroll wheel right here to adjust things, and it actually moves quite fast. So I've actually just ended up using the scroll wheel for most things, and I think that's actually what Alfa Romeo kind of intended you to do, because I feel like they made a touchscreen just to please people who want touchscreens. But at the end of the day, the buttons here, the hard buttons in the center stack area here work very well. So that's a quick button for settings, and yeah, it's fast when you do this. It's interesting. Very, not my favorite thing, because I really like a vehicle with great infotainment, and this is definitely not that. So do not buy this vehicle looking for something that is stellar in the tech department. I will say that the driving experience more than makes up for that, and I do think having all the physical buttons here is really nice. You do have dual zone climate control. You do also have 3-zone heated seats, and you've also got your heated steering wheel. That is all standard across, I think, every Giulia trim, which is pretty cool. You'll also notice that nice aluminum trim throughout the rest of the center stack. You've got a little Easter egg of this little Italian colors right there. Yeah, and the actual shift, you know, it doesn't look the greatest, I would say, but at the end of the day, I kind of appreciate a more normal gear shift these days. I feel like vehicles have gotten so strange about that. You do have a wireless charging pad kind of in a very interesting location. You kind of just slip your phone in there, and it holds it very well. And from my experience, it's actually worked very nicely. The one thing is that you do not have wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto on this vehicle, so you do have to plug in your vehicle, which is why I have my USB-C cord right here. So if you go into the armrest right here, armrest works well, and I also love that they have a spot for you to put your key. Isn't that so cool? I don't know who actually does that. I really would never do that. I just keep it in my pocket, but yeah, you do also have USB-C, USB-A, and an aux cable out. So whatever you want. So you have a lot of variety there. 2 cup holders, very standard. And you actually have another USB-A here. Strangely, nothing else, but yeah, you have a little bit of storage here, and overall, it's a nice center console. It's very usable, I would say. Let's talk about these seats here. very, very attractive. Even though they're all black, which I'm not a fan of, they look good and they complement that Vesuvius gray outside. On the Veloce trim, you can actually get the nice dark red seats. They look so good. I would have been very amazed to see that at National Car Rental, so I'm not surprised that they only have these black seats right here. But they look good. They have some nice perforation, great stitching, great bolstering. Look at these nice sport bolster seats. So the seats are different from the ones in the base trim. These are more bolstered. These are, I think they're called like black leather sport seats or something like that. They do have a thigh extender right here, which is really cool. I like that a lot. And they just overall look very good, right? It's a clean design and it's just understated luxury. And I feel like that's kind of a theme throughout this whole vehicle, is that it's pretty understated, but bold at the same time, if that makes any sense. You know, you've got the nice luxury interior and you do have very nice materials of the vehicle, but like at the same time, it's not super show-offy. I say the exterior is a bit more show-offy, but aside from that, the vehicle is actually relatively understated, especially on the interior. A few other tech goodies before we move on to the second row. You do have blind spot monitors, standard across every trim level, definitely expected at this price point. You do also have rear cross traffic alert, also expected, and you've got front and rear parking sensors. That's a host of good features, especially standard on this vehicle. So even at the $44,000 MSRP for the base Sprint trim, you do get a lot of niceties. It does feel modern, the tech at least feels modern, but it's really just the system here that needs a whole revamp. I'm really hoping that in the 2024, that digital gauge cluster runs with a stronger processor, because I think that's just the issue, is that it just feels very old. It feels like running an old laptop or an old computer or something like that. You also do not have an option to get a heads-up display, unfortunately, but I don't think too many people will miss that. You also do have ambient lighting, kind of. It's basically just that white mood lighting that appears at night. It's, you know, in the cup holders, on some of the side door profile things, and, you know, in the footwells. So not too exciting. You can't change the colors. It would be super cool if you could at least adjust them to like green, red, white, right? But you can't. So I wouldn't really call that ambient lighting, but technically the vehicle does say that it has it. Now let's go into the rear. So definitely not a highlight of the vehicle. The rear seats are pretty cramped, I would say. So this is at the normal driving position. So I've moved my driver's side to the normal driving position, and I'm pretty short at 5'8", and I have okay room, I would say. The orientation of the seats isn't the best, I would say. So in general, like my knees and thighs are kind of not supported, I would say. And yeah, you just don't have too much actual space to work with, but it's not uncomfortable. The seats themselves feel good, and you'll notice that they are similarly adorned to the front seats. So you do have that nice perforation, you do have the kind of the same design, of course just no bolsters, but you do have some nice stitching. The actual door panels, relatively similar. You don't get the fancy Harman Kardon look speaker grille there, but I don't think people in the back will miss that too much. Otherwise, it's a pretty good looking rear seat, I would say. You do have a dual pane sunroof. So this is not a pano sunroof. You'll notice you do have this big block in the middle, but it looks good, lets in a lot of light, and does make the vehicle feel quite airy. I would say visibility is okay. It's not huge, but I guess pretty standard for a compact sedan. I would say it actually feels a little larger than most compact sedans out there in terms of the airiness of the cabin. But yeah, it's just legroom isn't great, headroom isn't that great. This is definitely on the smaller side because I think they tried to keep the profile very sporty, which, you know, makes sense with the Alfa Romeo badge. All right, I have to talk about this. This is so funny. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but this looks like a face to me, and I think it's hilarious. It's like, you know, two eyeballs and some sort of mouth, teeth, whatever. You do have heated seats for both of the seats right here. You'll also notice that because you have this big indentation right here, I don't think anyone's going to be sitting in the middle seat back here. So truly this is a 4-person vehicle. 4 adults, I would say, could fit pretty comfortably, but I don't know how long I would want to be back here. I feel like I can't really stretch my legs too much, and like it's just not a great seating position. The seats do fold 60/40 though, so if you ever do need to haul anything longer, you can do that with the folding seats in the back, but otherwise the back is not the most exciting place to be. That is definitely going to be the driver's seat for this vehicle. All right, let's take the 2023 Alfa Romeo Giulia out for a drive. This is going to be the highlight of the review, in my opinion. So, I mean, I'll just start off by saying, like, I've been driving this for just a few days in the Bay Area, and it is just so much fun. The technology, like I said, could use an improvement. Really not the greatest vehicle in terms of tech. So if you're really wanting good tech, high tech, for that price tag especially, I really wouldn't go for the Alfa Romeo. But if all you want is a driver-centric great experience, I honestly don't think any other sports sedan, luxury sports sedan at least, can do anything against this vehicle. I really think this is far better than the 3 Series. Just the way the shifts feel, the way the steering feels, I really think the steering feels very special to me. It is light and easy to use, but at the same time, put it in dynamic and it's fast, it's ready to go. It's one of those vehicles that makes you feel very much in control and kind of pushes you in a way, right? I personally don't feel that way about many vehicles out there. This vehicle feels like it's pushing me to do more with it. I feel like every time I take a corner pretty fast, I'm like, I could have done it even faster with this vehicle. And that's a pretty cool thing to say, right? Like, I think that's rare that a vehicle inspires you like that. However, as you might expect, because the driving dynamics are so fun, you do lose quite a bit of that comfort, right? This is nowhere near as comfortable as a Lexus. This is nowhere near as comfortable as a Mercedes or even probably the Audi. But it just, you know, it's a trade-off, I would say. The ride quality isn't bad. It's certainly not bad. I would say that the ride quality is okay for a $44,000 vehicle on the base trim. Once you get to the higher numbers, if you get to like the 60,000 mark, I would say the ride quality is worse than the competitors. I do also appreciate that you do get a lot of standard tech features. So while they don't work the best, I would say, the rear view camera quality is awful. And you know, the screen isn't that big. 8.8 inches isn't terrible, but when you put it on Apple CarPlay, it doesn't look too great. It's doable though, it's fine. But it's just competitors have so much larger screens these days. Even like cheaper vehicles like Hyundais and Kias, they're getting huge. Toyota screens even are huge these days. So really, like, you can, it's passable, but it's just not as good right now. And I do think with the 2024 facelift, they're getting a little bit there with getting a digital gauge cluster, but there could still be a lot of work on this vehicle, I think. That's the thing, is like, I really do think they're trading out a lot of the tech goodies for the pure driving experience. And I think they're focusing so much on that it does sacrifice a lot of the luxury tech that I would expect. But in terms of the actual fit and finish, the feel of the inside of the vehicle, it feels good. All right, I'm gonna floor it a little bit here. Wow, it's so cool. It does take a little while to ramp up. I didn't brake torque it or anything there, but it sounds so good. Like, that's also a thing that I think a lot of sports car enthusiasts are going to like, is the sound of this vehicle. It sounds great. For an inline 4-cylinder, this vehicle sounds really, really good. The exhaust note is intoxicating, and I really think a lot of people are gonna love flooring this vehicle, and it just feels ready for the challenge, like I said. So I think it's just such a nicely designed vehicle in terms of the driving experience. So overall, I really feel like Alfa knows its target audience very well. It knows that this doesn't really appeal to people who want the latest in tech. It has passable tech, right? It's passable. It's not great, but it appeals to those who just really want a great driving experience. You know, maybe you do get to go on some back roads on the way to work, and this would make it so much fun to do that. So Alfa has really knocked it out of the park with both the Giulia and the Stelvio I drove a few years ago. It's just, the driving is unlike any other vehicle. It's very interesting, and I really think if you haven't tried an Alfa, but you've been looking at the 3 Series or something, or the G7D, I think give this a try and see if it speaks to you. Because I feel like that's the thing, is like, some people won't like it. I really think some people just will get into it and just like, I feel like Italian luxury is very different from a lot of the German luxury and Japanese luxury cars out there. But you know, test this out and see if you like it. Because I think I was a bit hesitant, but the more I've driven this over the past few days, the more I warm up to it, and now I feel like I'm going to miss it a lot when I leave it. So yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to get to drive this car, especially while it's still around. I don't know how much longer a sports sedan can realistically live in the US market. And again, the 2024 facelift is, in my opinion, better in all ways. The design looks better on the outside. You get that digital gauge cluster. So I think a lot of people will want to step up to that, especially if they want a more modern feeling vehicle. But if you really like those analog traditional gauges, you better go for this one. So that's pretty much all I had to talk through today. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of the 2023 Alfa Romeo Giulia Veloce. I love saying the name, it sounds super cool. You can check out some of my other videos up here, subscribe down here for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Thanks everyone, bye.